Pour le service en français, appuyez sur le 9. Please note our phone system has changed. You must now enter 125 instead of the extension number you're trying to reach. You may dial this at any time. For the names directory, press 7. For customer care and product availability, press 2. For medical information and drug safety, press 3.
Yeah, drug safety. People are teaching chest compressions to rescue breathing for fentanyl overdose. This is the manufacturer, Teva Canada. Yes, this is Gary Thompson calling. Teva Canada manufactures fentanyl, and there's protocols going across this country for a drug overdose. They teach the laypersons all the signs. The patient's in a coma, labored shallow breathing or apnea, Cheyne-Stokes respiration, cyanotic, meiosis, pinpoint pupils. Deny rescue breathing and give them chest compressions. They've taught that to millions of people. It's been going on since 2011. Teva Canada and the Chiefs of Police Ontario had a soiree at Humber College. They introduced this program called Face the Fentanyl a couple of years back. And the Chiefs of Police have a protocol that's up there. And it says to start with CPR. It has all the mentions of the signs and symptoms of respiratory failure. And then start with CPR. Well, it's not CPR. Those signs prove your heart's beating. You're dying lack of oxygen. There was a coroner's report that just finished December 20th. The jury's recommendations: do not deny rescue breathing from any respiratory emergency patient. The federal government, Health Canada, just changed their protocols in September. They removed rescue breathing. That used to be the first step in an overdose because it's always been that way. They've known for thousands of years. It's in the Old Testament and New Testament. It's just self-evident truth. The person needs air. So Health Canada, I got an email from the executive director, Heidi Jackson. They've got wallet cards they're giving out to Canadian citizens. All the signs of drug overdose and no mention of rescue breathing. Call 911, it says. Well, when you take this training, it's anywhere from half an hour to 90 minutes long. I've taken it several times. Yeah, and then the morgue's full of non-drug overdoses. I know personally of lots of cases, because when you empower laypersons, what they think is a life-saving technique, because the doctor told them to do it, they're doing it. And they're telling all their friends, if you're unconscious and blue, give them chest compressions. They publish this in the newspaper all the time. All the signs and symptoms of drug overdose. And so guess what you got in your ICUs? You got all kinds of people left with permanent neurologic impairment and multiple organ system failure. Yeah. The only politician I know that said anything is John Tory, the mayor of Toronto, and the medical officer of health. Back in January 2016, told everybody on the press, we had a press release, stop murdering everybody. There was 1,000 doctors. We signed a letter and went to, the first year there was 230 some odd. The next year, 740. We signed a letter, and then we had a sit down in August 28, 2017, had a sit down with Kathleen Wynne. It was CC'd to Eric Hoskins, Dirk Kyer, the coroner of the province, the medical officer of health, Dr. David Williams, and Jane Philpott when she was federal health minister. Had to sit down with Kathleen Wynne and told her to stop murdering everybody. I got a phone call from Diana Swain of the CBC years ago. Gary, we can't talk about that on the air. That's mass murder done by doctors. Put the information up on the CBC's Facebook. I'll give it a like right away. Because children know what they're doing is wrong. Any child knows, holy smokes, that person's alive. You take how the heart and lungs work in grade 2, and then in grade 6, then in grade 8, and then again in high school. And Boy Scouts and Girl Guides, they get taught rescue breathing because that's what they're most likely to run into, because their children, friends, their children don't suffer cardiac arrest generally. That happens to people 40 years old and up, overweight with heart disease. And they taught out. I've been on a webinar with the Ontario Pharmacists Association, where the Ontario Pharmacists Association is teaching chest compressions. And even the pharmacists, well, they had a doctor, Dr. Michelle Clayman, as a consultant for the Pharmacists Association. She says in her webinar, oh yeah, your grandmother can take a couple extra pain pills, or your child can get into the parent's medication. And start with chest compressions on a nice cyanotic blue background. That's what their protocol they preach up. And every pharmacist knows it's wrong. First class in pharmacy school, what to do for a poisoning or a drug overdose. It's give them air ASAP. You're not allowed in the lab not knowing that. And everyone's making themselves physically and emotionally ill, denying protected their jobs. I asked pharmacists, why are you doing that? And he says, well, they make me. I says, nobody makes you do anything. And the more people they teach to do that, the more likely one of your family members is going to get killed. There's only 15,000 out of hospital cardiac arrests per year in this province. Most emergency department, most common patient they see is a respiratory patient. I caught a guy giving his son chest compressions. His son was having a seizure. Caught another guy. He fell down, knocked himself unconscious. I hear a scream go up. I go see what's going on. Guy's unconscious on the floor with some blood coming out the back of his head. And his good friend, 220 pounds, is pounding on his chest going, Nigel, Nigel, Nigel. I says, Nigel's alive. Don't try and kill him. Got anything to say?
I'm just listening.
You're listening. Well, you know it. Are you a pharmacist or anything?
Yep, I'm a pharmacist.
Yeah.
You had a question about the fentanyl, or?
Well, it's not about the fentanyl. See, there's going to be a huge class action suit happen one day. The first people I took this training back in September 2011 when it first became available in Ontario from Toronto Public Health. And the lies just get bigger and bigger. There's going to be a huge class action suit. I phoned Sandoz Pharmaceuticals. They're the manufacturer of naloxone, the intermuscular naloxone. I phoned Sandoz. This is what I said. Look at, buddy. He says, well, we have no say. That's off label. Doctors doing whatever, it's off label. And I says, when it gets to a class action suit, I'm going to make the plaintiffs fully aware that you knew about it and didn't do anything. The guy from Sandoz says, don't threaten Sandoz. I says, I'm not threatening Sandoz. I'm just telling you what I'm going to do. Jesus, I'm trying to save lives. Could be his own. Anyway, I just got a phone call from Dave Renwick. He's the general manager of Adapt Pharma, the manufacturer's intranasal naloxone. He says, yeah, our protocols don't go far enough. Because 20% of the time people leave their naloxone elsewhere and they're getting denied rescue breathing and pounding on their chest. Jeebers. So there was the coroner's inquest. There was that, Brad Chapman. that Dr. Aaron Orphan, he was the co-author of the AHA guidelines on toxic ingestions 2015, which I've also been published in. He changed his mind up on the stand. Look, Toronto City lawyer asked him, he says, so what about first aid? He says, yes, first aid, rescue, breathe, it saves lives. Yeah, before that, he's been saying, no, chest compressions, start with chest compressions. Yeah, got him on tape on the CBC. He says, I'm an emergency physician. Rescue breathing is very hard to do. It's very hard for EMS. And so, yeah. And then he's been around publishers. I've been at a couple of conferences he's been at. Emergency care conference and resuscitation conferences. Jesus, man. Right in front of doctors, 150 doctors at the resuscitation conference. Yeah. He says CAB, yeah, drug overdose. And there's a nurse on the stage with him. She's Lee Chapman. She's a PhD in nursing. She started up the safer consumption sites here in Toronto, Moss Park. Lee Chapman's right beside him. She says, Aaron Orphan says to Lee, just because you're giving respiratory assist to drug overdoses doesn't mean you are saving their lives. Everybody start with chest compressions. And yeah, right in front of 150 doctors. Well, if your heart stops from acute respiratory failure, your chances of survival are so slim. You know, you need advanced cardiac life support. It's not a cardiac arrest, simple cardiac arrest from heart disease. God, it's a miracle to survive. Anyway, and I don't know why everyone isn't worried about their own life, because you suffer an injury or an illness that's going to put you unconscious, and then they're going to pound on your chest all too eagerly. Yeah. When you empower somebody, you're going, oh yeah, let's do that. The doctor told me how to save lives. I know how to do it. Yeah. Heart and Stroke Foundation wrote them a letter back in 2013. Stop doing that. I'm the only comment up on the Heart and Stroke Foundation's official site about it. Yeah. Anyway, they're other crazy people, you know. It's costing you a fortune. All of us. Our healthcare is being destroyed on purpose, and it's increasing drug use and abuse too. My brother-in-law is an emergency physician, Dr. Daryl Gibeon. He got himself hooked on fentanyl. Guess why? Stress in the workplace, working with a bunch of incompetent doctors, not talking about it. You know, stress, post-traumatic stress leads to a disorder in 6 months if you don't talk about it. He wound up in jail to 3-year penitentiary time. Yeah, he's a great guy. They went through all his patients that he saw when he was using fentanyl. Not one mistake. They went through it with every patient with a fine-tooth comb. He's going to be getting his license. He's doing great work now, going around the country talking about addictions. But anyway. Well, I'm just trying to save some lives. At Gary CPR, that's my Twitter handle.
Okay.
You can look it all up. It's all up there. Dr. Peter Selby, he's the chief of addictions at KMH. He has an office right next door to mine. His staff call him, Gary's a mass murderer. You know that, eh? I says, yeah, of course I do. He sent me an email. He says, oh, no, chest compressions. Then he's on the CBC. He says, oh, yeah, fentanyl. That'll put you in a coma. And they use it as an anesthetic. Yeah. And then up on the KMH website, start with chest compressions. Right on the KMH website with all the signs and symptoms of patients alive. Give me a call at 647-864-6609 when you can find somebody with a brain cell that wants to save their own life and their children's lives. Yeah, you have a great day. As a psychiatrist said that she was taking upgrading in my neuroscience class, Gary's the sanest person in the whole province trying to stop mass murder. I says, what about you, Doc? She says, leave my name out of it. And I says, oh, no, they're not. Have a good one.
Thanks, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Teva Canada faced the fentanyl. Signs could be any of the hundreds of causes of breathing emergency. They need air ASAP. Teva Canada, Chiefs of Police Ontario protocol from Face the Fentanyl.
The paramedic service is actually very well prepared. They all have naloxone. The most important thing when they get on site is actually ventilation as well as naloxone. But I think what we heard loud,
because that precise example was used as to whether other first responders should have naloxone, and it was said that was not the case, that the priority, for example, when the fire department are often the first to arrive, should be on ventilation, as Dr. Yaffe just said. But let me just say this about the disaster or crisis that comes to affect a big community. What's the one thing that often stands in the way of effective dealing with it? It's different protocols people have, different ways they collect information, different information they have, and the whole idea of this partnership, and I commend those who pulled it together before I got involved, is to get everybody around the table so you can start to produce numbers, that they're collected in a common fashion, that they have protocols that are well agreed upon so that when things get worse, if they do, hopefully not, but when they do, that we actually can deal with this, as opposed to sort of saying, oh my goodness, this person didn't tell me that, or we have a different system here. This is what causes people to lose their lives, quite literally.
That's right, John. Anybody with any respiratory emergency, they're giving them chest compression.
So what's working with the site? We've reversed over 168 overdoses. 33% have been reversed with naloxone, 67 have been with other means like oxygen or stimulation. We've called 911 for about half of the 33% of ODs naloxone. So we try not to call 911 unless we absolutely have to. Again, the community is quite, trepidatious about paramedics and police and things like that. It hasn't always gone well. The first time we had to call 911, it was not a great interaction with them. We've had some great interactions with paramedics. We've had some really horrible interactions. And police, obviously, hasn't always been great. And people have been traumatized by these services. So even if it goes well, that doesn't necessarily mean that people feel okay about it when they walk away, even if that interaction has gone well. So we've tried to avoid that as much as possible. And every supervised consumption service over time has started to use naloxone less and less and less, and oxygen and other things more and more and more. And that's what we had to. And so in the early days, we had to rely on naloxone more, and we found other ways of responding and keeping people safe. The other thing that we can't tell you is we can tell you how many overdoses have happened, but we can't tell you how many overdoses have been avoided. Because when people have a safe place to use and they can take their time, they can measure out their dose, you can start doing it and inject really slowly and wait for it to kick in, and be like, oh, I'm really high, I shouldn't do anymore, I'll take it out. Whereas when people are using it in a public bathroom, they're like, okay, I gotta just do this really quick. I gotta get this in me and get out.